listening to the Ropes and Riffs podcast with your host, John Kiernan.
Hey, it's you again. Welcome to this episode of the Ropes and Riffs podcast. As always, I am your host, John, your resident entrance theme song composer. And today, I'm very excited for a bunch of reasons to have the one and only Javi on the show. You may have seen Javi recently on NXT, on Level Up, and in Evolve. But the reason I'm excited that Javi's on the show is he just released his own entrance theme. It's very metalcore, and it's very much of that metal background, which, as many of you know, is something that I hold very near and dear to my heart, as that's a lot of the music that I release and a lot of the music that I love. So in our interview, we talk about what went into him releasing his own theme, some of the best times that he had at NXT and in Evolve, and how all of that came to create the character that you see in his most recently released video, as well as what you guys are going to see from Javi going forward as well. We also talk about a lot of different things in music, in wrestling, and I'm just going to tell you, if you're a fan of Killswitch Engage, Bullet for My Valentine, all those kinds of bands, this is an episode for you. If you're a fan of pro wrestling, this is obviously one for you as well. So thank you guys for checking out this episode of the Ropes and Riffs podcast. If this is your first time or you're a returning guest, first off, welcome back. And if you could, please go ahead and subscribe over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, wherever you're checking out your podcast, watching, or listening. Also, if you like what you hear, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review and a comment on your favorite podcasting platform of choice. And if you leave a review on any of those, I'll go ahead and I'll read them out on the show. Also, if you want to have your name mentioned on the show as well, you can drop a $10 donation over to PayPal at ROPES, the letter N, RIFFS, and anyone who donates $10 or more through PayPal will get a shout out on the show. All right, so you've heard enough from me now. Let's go ahead and get into this awesome conversation with Javi. So listen, before we even hop into this conversation with Javi, we were talking right off stream before we jumped in that the man is wearing the legendary shirt of Bullet for My Valentine. Bullet is the best, man. So I'm so happy to have a conversation with you and just to see that shirt within the first second of you popping on screen here.
You know, it's funny because half of my wardrobe is just band tees. You know, I've got Bullet, I've got As I Lay Dying, I've got Avenged, I've got all the early 2000s like metalcore. You know, that's like the stuff that I grew up on, wanted to, you know, listen to and all that. I've got half my closet's just band shirts. I figure, you know, I'll rock with Bullet today.
Yeah, me too. I think that when I was starting on guitar and learning music, for me it was like Avenged Sevenfold, it was Atreyu, all those guys. And I forget if I've told this story on stream before, but when I started playing, I was like, oh, I'm just going to be a rhythm player because lead is hard and you have to be good at guitar to do that, right? And so I had learned right side of the bed. I had a band that I was in high school. And then when I went to college, I was just sitting in my dorm room one day and I was like, man, that right side of the bed solo is kind of cool. Like, I don't know, maybe I can do it. And I learned it. It took like a week or two and I was like, oh man, people can play lead guitar. And then that was it with Atreyu too. Oh.
Yeah, Sinister Gates from Avenged Sevenfold is like my big guitar. He's like my guitar idol and all that. And like my grandma bought me the Schecter Avenger model. My parents had bought me the acoustic Sin guitar that actually I used on NXT. Sinister Gates was like my guy for that sort of thing. So like I'd be watching videos that, and Bullet, obviously I have he uses a Jackson like V. So I like, you know, like obviously my influences and my musical instrument choices, you know, are heavily based off of like Avenged and Bullet and all those bands.
Yeah, Avenged always is like, I feel like if you're a fan of Avenged or you're a fan of Bullet, but especially Avenged, they've always made it like you're part of like their family. And I remember when I was young, that was actually one of the first guitars that I bought for myself was an Avenger also, but it was before they started doing like the whole line of like Sinister Gates, and the Avenger model wasn't out for years, but he, I guess for Backcountry, he had one, I forget the story of it, but it was like one of like these older legacy ones that had a pick guard, and it was like, it totally didn't look super metal, but then they started coming out with the Hellraiser series of it, where it was like the red top and everything. I was like, oh, that's cool. So I played that, and then all of a sudden Sin Gates comes out with the pinstripe one with all of his like headstock and everything. I'm like, if I would have waited a year.
Yeah, mine doesn't have the headstock. Mine is like a tiger shark kind of print on the body, so it's not like the Sinister Gates one, and it doesn't have the headstock, which I really want. But my acoustic, the one that I used on NXT, that one has the Hellraiser headstock.
Oh, that's so cool. And I love the fact that now you have this persona of, yeah, do we even call it a persona? Because again, you're into metalcore. You are the
It's just
guy
me.
who's personifying it. Yeah. So it's not even like, hey, let's find something to represent. It's like, this is you through and through.
Absolutely. And honestly, it kind of started from like, people would see me on NXT, and then here in Orlando, I'd go to concerts, and it's like, Javi, like I didn't know that you were I didn't know you were into this type. I mean, I'd be seeing bands like Unearth, Necrogoblicon, whatever at the Conduit. And, they'd be like, I had no idea, like, you listen to this music. I'm like, oh, and it's funny because between me and my wife, Tatum, like, she was like, people always, when we're out, people recognize you more. I think to me, I think it's just because I'm like, I look like I'm like available for conversation. I don't know what it is. I have a face for that sort of thing, I guess. But people's like, you're Javi, right? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, well, and it would happen to me every time I go to a concert in Orlando. And I thought, well, like, these are my people. This is what I represent, like, and when I got hurt, I'm like, this is more something I wanted. I was thinking of things even before I got hurt to switch things up, but once I got hurt, I'm like, okay, this kind of helps me kind of reset and move on and do something different, do something that's more myself.
I feel like that's how the story goes with a lot of wrestlers, not just with people that have been in WWE, people outside of WWE, but I feel like in general, unfortunately, sometimes injury happens. And first off, I'm glad to see that the recovery is, going where it is. We
Thank you.
always want the uptick quick in recovery. But you hear a lot of people that they go, oh, when I go away for a little bit or when injury happens, they kind of sit back and they go, that's really the point where a lot of wrestlers go, okay, cool. Who am I? Like, who do I want to represent? Not what kind of character am I creating, but like
Yeah,
what really resonates with me and who am I outside of the ring that I can, as they say, turn up to 11.
exactly. And what you guys saw on what I was starting with on Evolve was kind of getting there, and it's a little different because the nice part of what I'm going to be doing is that I have control over it. I have control over where I look, and not that they told me to look any type of way or anything like that, but you have to keep in mind that when it comes to WWE, and the fans in particular, like, you have to throw it in their face, what kind of character you are. So like, like I wore the eyeliner, and I wore the mesh shirts, blah, 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 all that stuff. And, stuff that maybe like, I don't mind wearing eyeliner, and, maybe it'll come back, maybe it won't, I don't know. Or, but like, to me, like, I always thought of like who I was going out wearing band shirts. I always thought about, what I think, As I Lay Dying is a perfect example. And that's where like a lot of like my mannerisms, like, would, like, if I were to be on stage, how would I present myself? And between M Shadows and Tim, like, that amalgamation of like, that's how I would hold myself on stage. And then, that's where it would transition to, in entrance or in the ring. But like, the difference with WWE and then, being free from, being on the indies, is that people who get it. My gimmick, my person, my persona, whatever, it's not obviously like, it's very heavily tied to metalcore, all that stuff. But I was talking with someone, it kind of, and I was like, I don't mean to be blasphemous, but I think like metalcore Jesus is kind of how I think of it. Like, like, come to me, my children, if you're bullied, if you're someone that is looked at funny because of this, if you're, it doesn't have to be metalcore, but like, a lot of people that like feel that they are not in the in crowd, that are left out, tend to kind of be in that, maybe not metalcore, but in that alternative genre. And like, when you're in that alternative genre, you're all kind of like a big family, kind of, like, we could protect each other. And that's kind of part of, it's a little different than how I was presented on Evolve. And look, to be honest, the Evolve stuff was fun and it was great. And to be honest, like, the interview that I had and the direction that I was told it was supposed to go, I really enjoyed it. But now I can really like sink my teeth in, and I have control over, like, and that's the thing, like, with WWE, like, between WWE and now with WWE, like, they have the story. They know what they want. I can pitch or not, and well, whatever. But with this, like, if I'm lazy, if I'm lazy now, like, I don't. It's up to me to write my own story at this point. You know what I mean?
And I mean, you've already gone ahead and written your own theme too, and you've already released by the time of this recording, you've already released the video for it. You've started putting out some promo for it. And I thought it was really cool because first off, you reached out to people on your social media, said, hey, I want to bring in the crowd into here too. By the way, quick over to Tatum real quick. If you ever look at Tatum's Instagram and see the music that she uses too, she loves the heavy stuff too. So just got to put her over real quick. I remember that she had things where she's like, I'm just muscling up this 405. By the way, here's like this super heavy breakdown.
Yeah.
That's great. So shout to Tatum here.
I think that's kind of where we started connecting, was music. To be honest, that's probably where we started connecting. But the music video and all that, the story with that is interesting. So I actually wrote that while I was hurt with the intention of WWE using it. When I got hurt, it took a couple months. I'm friends with a local band here in Orlando called The High Ground. And I reached out to their guitar player, Matt Brown, who is a genius at what he does, because he's, very musically gifted. My wife asked me this question. He's like, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think you're at, playing guitar? Like, do you want to pick, whatever. And when you're in WWE, it's kind of hard to like focus on some outside passions when you're trying to like, all that. And I said, well, like if 10 being like I'm a guitar god and 1 being like I'm a beginner, I'd say I'm like a 6, right? Like, and that's the thing. I'm pretty, I've been playing guitar for 12 years. And I think I'm okay. I don't think I'm great. I don't think I'm bad. But like, I'm able to write riffs, but where my difficulty lies is writing a song, like putting things together. I know how to. I wrote for the song, like I wrote the opening riff and all that. That riff's been stuck in my head for probably 10 years, and I was like, well, it's time to put it in a song. And it's very loosely based off of very loosely based off of As I Lay Dying, off of Kill Switch Engage, Avenged Sevenfold, obviously, Bullet, like all my metalcore bands, like that's what it's loosely based off of, But like through the song Through Struggle by As I Lay Dying, I'm like, okay, if I had to pick any song to be an entrance theme, I would pick that one. Like any song that's not, copywritten or whatever, I would pick that song because it's just so badass. There's a long intro, and then there's a lot of crowd participation when the riff hits, and that's what I wanted for this song. So me and Matt, I'm like, hey, this is what I want. Here's what I got. I wrote riffs here and there, but honestly, like you take the reins and you do what like you're a good songwriter and all that. So please just help me out and put pieces together. And man, he I can't thank him enough. He did a wonderful job helping me out there with that there. But I wrote it with the intention of WWE using it, and obviously they didn't use it. I kept pushing and we have these shows in the Performance Center called PC Lives. A lot of them are for like the young guns to get reps. Sometimes you do them for people that like are coming back from injury, and sometimes they're just matches to get reps, like so like anybody that you've seen on TV has done APC Live, right?
And they're not televised, they're just for like the audience in there,
just literally the Performance Center, like the people in the Performance Center. So like like my wife might be booked for one and I wouldn't be, and I would watch her wrestle somebody, right? So like I was like, hey, let me run with this, let me do this, and everybody in the Performance Center just loved it, and I was like, is that? And I don't think like they knew, but they didn't know that. They were like, is that you? And I'm like, yeah, no, that is me, yes. Because I've always I've been on stage. I'm a trained singer. I play like 7 different instruments, all that, but of course I pick metalcore is like that's my muse of that sort of thing, and so like, is that you? And I'm like, yeah, that's me. I wrote that and all that, and at that point it was just a demo version. I didn't have the fully mixed and mastered version that you heard. So I kept pushing. I'm like, look, like I'm ready to sell this to you guys. I don't care about making money off of it. It's my baby, my pet project that I want everybody to hear. I don't care if you guys want to sell it and make money, that's fine. I don't need it. Even like the guitar player, Matt, who's like, I just want a credit on there. I don't really care about money or anything like that. Sweet. From The Office, it's a very hard thing to get past. Like it's very legal, and to be honest, I think certain people get it and certain people don't. And it's not like, not in a disparaging way. It's just like some people do and some people don't. And I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you what those reasons are. Like maybe, I'm sure there's something behind the scenes that I don't know, and maybe some things are library tracks. So I don't know. Some people get it, some people don't, and like I haven't picked up on that, on like the pattern of why a certain person does or doesn't get certain things. So it's not like anything like that. Uh, but yeah, no, it just, I think for the last match that I wrestled on Evolve, they gave me a new theme, and it was fine. It was a library track, and I was happy to get rid of the old theme that I had, which was just terrible. It was absolutely awful.
That one rocked the world, I think.
Rock the world, yes.
Yes.
And it's funny because it's a library track, so my theme song was in a Steel Panther vignette video. Like literally, it was like a behind the scene type of gimmick where they're interviewing Michael Starr, and I just hear Baron Aaron, and like I'm like scrolling through Instagram, like, what? Wait a minute. So my video was on a Steel Panther video before, and I'm a big fan of Steel Panther too. Yeah, but I'm like, what is going on?
So what you're saying is now, to some degree, Javi has some sort of canonic relationship to Steel Panther. That's what you're saying.
Canonically, I am in Steel Panther. Yes.
That's awesome. And I mean, the thing is, though, even if WWE doesn't have the rights to it, you're taking this initiative, you're creating this character, and you're saying, hey, this is what I want to be portrayed like going forward. And even if it doesn't show up on NXT, you now have this piece of music that now you're going post NXT, this whole rebrand, this whole core kid Javi, and just getting to show everybody, okay, cool, this is what I came up with. This was really me. Like, not just what you see in the ring, not just what you see in the promos, but even the words that are coming out of my mouth. Because again, you sang on that too. You came up with these riffs. You had your guys working on it with you. And it's like, there's such an opportunity nowadays in wrestling to be able to not just rely on one thing and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go out into the world and now I am that brand. I am that product. I am the vision that I want you to see with it.
Absolutely.
It's really cool to see that. So, and also you're in Florida. Florida is like a hotbed for metalcore, all that.
Yeah, yeah.
The trivium guys. Like, let's just
Oh, yeah.
be real there. So it's so cool.
And it's funny because if you look at a lot of my early stuff in WWE with like the big body stuff, like you can tell I was I'm a big fan of Chris Jericho, and you could see that in my work back then. But even like now, like that was always such a cool thing for me was he had Fozzy, obviously he was wrestling. Obviously, he's like written 3 or 4 different books. He's an actor. He did a cameo on Terrifier. I'm like, whoa,
Yep.
I was like, wait a minute.
And one of your jackets was fairly reminiscent of him too. Like, not exactly the light up, but like I felt like one of
Yeah,
the jackets that you would wear to the ring was something very Chris Jericho-esque, like early on
it
too.
was probably the white
Yep.
big body one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that one. To be honest, like, yeah, it was. He's a big influence of mine, between that and Van Halen too. Like that was like the other, like when I start with the big body stuff, that was like the inspiration, because again I was big into Steel Panther. I love Van Halen, and like metalcore is what I love. But like when I'm just like whenever Van Halen comes out, I love David Lee Roth, so it's um as you can see, like all my influences kind of were reflected off of how I looked and how, like, the segments that I did. A lot of those things reflected, and now, less so in a way, but I still, the part of me that still has that, like I want to be in a band, I want to wrestle, and I want to write these books, and I want to be in these TV shows and movie shows and all that. So like Chris Jericho has really kind of, and that way I'm like, man, that's what I want to do, is I want to do all these things. I want to be busy, especially because like my home life like is boring, like in a very, very good way.
Yeah.
It's me, it's my wife. We don't like to do anything. We like to go to concerts, and that's about the most that what we do. We don't party. We don't. I'm straight edge, so like I'm already boring. And we've got a cat, and we recently got a dog. You know, like that's our life. That's our, you know, our family. That's what we do here. So for me, like, my creative outlet is doing everything. And a buddy of mine, you know, I was talking to a buddy of mine last night, playing video games, and he was just like, dude, I just, you know, it just seemed like nothing, like this last month, like, you know, like he was just taking a lot of work for everything. And then all of a sudden you drop everything, and it's insane how much work that you did. And that's kind of what metalcore kind of is about, especially like the local scene and all that. It's very DIY, very, you know, it takes a village. You know, I had help from friends. You know, like obviously the high ground helped me with that. My buddy James, he did my logo for my merch, and he also did the album cover for me, actually, for the song. And it just like had all these different friends, you know, helping me out. And then a lot of it was on me, you know, like I'm over here, you know, I gave myself maybe an hour to cry after the phone call, and then I got to work. Like I'm not someone that is good at just sitting around. Like even when I do sit around, I feel like I gotta do something, even if I shouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, that's kind of where things have been. It's like it was maybe kind of quiet. Like I was trying, you know, it was still active, but it was quiet because I wanted to do. There's a lot of things that I want to do. You know?
Yeah, and I think that you also share a sentiment both from kind of the hardcore metalcore scene and even wrestling. And I think anybody can attest to this who's listening or watching this too. A matter of you get that call and you're just obviously it's like, you know, you have all these different feelings, probably like more than anybody can even assume for anybody that's you know, ever experienced something like that. But you know what? You got to pick yourself back up and do exactly what you do. You know, you just find the next outlet. Okay, great. Here's the situation now. And where am I going with it going forward? And, you know, not just with you, but with others that were kind of released at the same time. You know, a lot of you guys do the same thing. Like a lot of you guys already have the promos up. A lot of you guys already are just doing amazing things. And it's really great to see that in the face of adversity like that, you all are just like, hey, what's next? What's coming? And there's this identity that you're able to craft off of that. And I guess a question also in your journey and Evolve and NXT and Level Up and all that, how much of this personality are you bringing to the table saying, hey, this is what I want to portray, as opposed to kind of, okay, cool, like this is what you say you want, but this is where we know that we want to have you slotted in?
So I will say, like they, you know, for a lot of this stuff on Evolve, like I loved the idea. So, you know, for anybody that maybe didn't watch or is not aware, so you know, when Evolve first started, you know, it was like my first like matches back and on TV and anything. And you know, I wanted to do this thing where like, and if you read the lyrics of the song, it's kind of the same thing. Very, very much, very events, very As I Lay Dying, you know, very window to the soul type of thing, you know. And I wanted to be very vulnerable, you know, especially with my character, with Big Body Javi. I was an arrogant prick. I was arrogant, bad person who was full of himself. But that wasn't who I was. And, you know, I was still Big Body Javi for a number of weeks when I came back. But I was like, hey, you know, I might be Big Body Javi, but I've changed. Like, I'm not, I promise that, you know, that's not who I am anymore. And then, you know, it comes to the point where like, maybe that's just not who I am at all. And, you know, very pensive. The way I think about it is like a born again Christian or like a recovering addict. Like, cause that's a big story I think people can relate to is, you know, you don't want to be defined by your past ever, you know, like, and even if you're not someone that's ever had really a past like that, but like, I mean, everybody can relate to it. Like everybody has that moment in high school where like, man, I did something really cringy and I can't stop thinking about it. And you think about it 10 years afterwards, you know, like it doesn't matter if you've done anything serious or not, you know, everybody has that experience and you just want to believe that you're not that person anymore, or that you're going to work towards not being that person. And I think that was to me, it's a very poetic and beautiful story to tell. Moving forward, when I got to do the emo stuff, you know, it was very much close to what I want to do, you know. And like the thing is, you know, when you were working with with other people, it's not always going to be exactly what you want. And that makes sense because, you know, it's not just about me. It's about all these characters in this universe, wherever, whether it's WWE, AEW, TNA, wherever, It's all these characters, all these gimmicks, all these people in a universe. And it's just very much like real life. Like I can't just go somewhere and expect something done. There's a whole dynamic at play. And so for the emo stuff, I will say a good amount of it will be because it's already kind of intrinsic to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But to be fair, now it's going to be more, I don't want to say contrived, but less. It's going to be feel more comfortable for me because I know what the scene is, and that's the thing with the creative with creative, and it's not a bad thing. It's that everybody has different experiences. Between me and anybody that would have been pitching creative stuff, I'm probably the only one that is in the metalcore scene. Anything that knows anything about that. So when we're talking about writing stuff or doing stuff, it might be a little alien to them, and because that's not their stuff. They listen to other things, or their interests are other things,
Right.
and that's totally okay. So now now it's more okay. Like I know what people that are in my scene would relate to and would know. I'm like, oh, that's funny, or oh, that's cool, or I know what that's from, So I would say a good amount of it for sure, at least as far as the story wise. I still want to tell the story of like, and I mentioned it earlier, like not to be blasphemous, but like a metalcore Jesus in a way where like, if you're picked on, if you're bullied, if you feel left out, if you feel like you just never ever picked, like I'm your guy. I want to be the guy that, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to represent, like the Beatitudes, blessed are the meek, blessed are the, like that to me is very, very cool stuff.
And I feel like that's also something you can pull so much from. There's so much, at least, juice in that idea on what you could do on screen, what you could do in promos and everything like that. And it's right for that too. And being able to pull together a video in the time that you did is awesome. Being able to create your own theme is awesome. With the people that came to your music video, for people listening and people watching, who would be some interesting people that were in the pit for you?
Well, one, as you guys can see, this is the only tattoo I have. It's my wedding ring with my wife. Me and my wife have one.
Very Alexi Laiho too, by the way.
Yeah. Me and my the tattoo artist that did it for me showed him and his wife came. Those are interesting. There's a few that I can't particularly give away. Maybe down the line for kayfabe's sake, I guess. But my wife was obviously there, and it's so funny because I did a concert last year with the High Ground. They let me get up on stage and do a song with them, and my wife's just like stressed, like, you guys don't talk about this beforehand, like, and she was like stressed out more than I was. Like, I'm fine. Like, it's just you just get up and you just do the things. She's like, how do you do that? And same thing like with the music videos. She's like, oh, what? And she was like, I'm not trying to get in, but like, like I'm not trying to like, worry or anything. I'm like, no, it's okay. Like I've got it. And she's like, I just don't know how you make things happen. And that's something that, that's something that I think has been a story of my life so far, is that I make things happen for myself. No matter, like I've been put in some very, very interesting situations that I feel like, it's one of those things where I'm like, man, why me? A lot of times, but I make things happen for myself, and I don't mean that with an ego. I don't mean that with anything. I just mean that, I make things happen, and that's something that drives me. Is like, okay, if this door is open, I'm gonna find a way around it. So, but go back to my wife. It's it's one of those things where she's stressed. But it's like I just don't understand. Like it's fine. Like, it's okay. It'll be okay. But she was there, and I had a couple kids from House of Champions. If you know them, they're down in Florida. They're a wrestling school down here. But to be honest, I had a bunch of my lovely fans. One of which. They flew down. They didn't fly down for the thing. That would have been cool. But then they flew down because they were going to vacation at Disney, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm here. I gotta come and do this." So like it was like perfect timing for them. I have to say, I had somebody gave me a drawing, and I have it. I have it downstairs. I have it here somewhere downstairs, and they gave me a drawing, and it was like the most emotional thing to me. It was so beautiful. Because they obviously followed me along through WWE, and then they're always on my streams and whatnot. And it's like a community that I've built. Somebody came up to me, it's like, hey man, I just want you to know that this, this experience here kind of took away all the anxiety that I had going on. And to me, that's exemplary of like that's what I want to do. I want to touch people in a way that is hard to explain, because that's a hard thing to explain. Like, like, oh, you took my, I couldn't explain that to you. And so like that entire experience, like I had a bunch of fans, a bunch of friends and all that just come and hang out. Shout out to Grumpy's Underground. That's the bar that we use, and they were awesome too, because they weren't going to charge me anything, and I was like, obviously like I don't feel comfortable, just not helping out in any way, but like they weren't going to charge. They were total sweethearts. They were very understanding of like what I was going for, and very understanding of like, this is the scene. It's very DIY, and we look out for each other. So, but yeah, no, I am super blessed with the fans that I have, and the fact that they came out and they showed out means the absolute world to me.
And I love that too, the fact that you have such a hodgepodge of people who have come out. Obviously your wife Tatum, you have some people who eagle-eyed fans will have to keep a look at if they weren't masked on, ladies and gentlemen. And then also just all the different fans and friends that, were at that too, because it does show what you talk about all the time. And I think with wrestling and with music, and especially more in like the heavier genres, and this is something I experienced over my time playing in bands, writing themes, all that, it very much is about community, and you don't realize what that community is. There's this picture that goes around nowadays, which is like, oh, only 10 people liked your post, only 100. We'll picture 100 people in a room, picture 10 people in a room, and you don't really think about it because it's digital. But when you have people that are in that room with you tangibly, you're like, man, someone took time out of their day to give you a photo, and you're just like, what is it? That's crazy. Like, I did something to them, or I did something that made their life at that moment just feel different in a way that you don't realize. And it's just like, man, it's cool to see. I think, you could think of bands like August Burns Red, Avenged Sevenfold, all these guys, and they all talk about that community too. I talked about it before we jumped on stream about like feeling like family.
Mm-hmm.
For me, when the Rev died, it was one of the biggest things for me. I was like, man. And, even people that I was in bands with, friends with at the time, it's like everyone rallied around the band. And people were just like, oh, the record that came out that had Portnoy on it, Nightmare, everyone's like, oh, like people that weren't really part of the fandom were just like, it's not going to do well. And it crushes because the music was great. But not just that. It's like you have this feeling that you're part of something bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that until you feel that, or until you connect to something like that or a part of that, you don't really understand it. And then when you are, and when you're in these fields like music or wrestling, it's just like they say, when you feel it, you feel it, and when you're part of it, you're part of it. And it's just, it's really cool to see.
Yeah, and it like you said, it's hard to explain until you've experienced it.
Yeah.
When, I saw Avenged Sevenfold, excuse me, at a festival I was in college in 2017, 2018. And it was a different experience. Like I was front row, and that was when I was young enough to want to get in the pit and all that.
Yep. I remember those days.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I always tell my wife, I'm like, even if I wasn't wrestling, I don't know that I would get in the pit now. Like it looks fun and all, but yeah, no, I saw them, and it felt like an otherworldly experience, because it's just like, you're surrounded. I had a bunch of my buddies with me, but then just like people that, like people you don't know will start grabbing you and start singing in your face with you. And it's really weird because there's really no other community that you could do that,
Right.
Wrestling and rock, metal, whatever is like they're very, very intertwined in that sense. Very few communities can you do something like that, not get punched in the face, for it to be welcomed,
Right.
It makes, for every hate comment or hater or whatever that I would get, like I have, a multitudes more of love and dedication.
Agreed. And Avenged Sevenfold will always have such a place there, and just metal in general. And I still remember, I've seen Avenged Sevenfold a couple times, and when I was younger, I had seen, what is it? So my Avenged Sevenfold story, because I think everybody who's a fan has one. I went to this convention called the NAMM Show, which is...
Yes, yeah. I've always wanted to go. Yeah.
It's awesome. And this was the first year that I was invited to go. It was with a company called Godin Guitars. And my wife and I both went. My wife is also a musician. So we went out there. It was 2012. And in Anaheim, California, we were doing the thing, we're looking at all the gear, talking to the people, and we're just like, oh my God, like as a musician, you're kind of like, this is the pinnacle of like being part of it. Cause just, I don't know, John Petrucci's walking around and you're like, that's crazy. And he's not like signing autographs right there. He's just like, oh, I'm here to look at my guitars. And I'm like, what is life? This is crazy. Guthrie Govan spilled coffee on my shoe. Story for another day. But like, we finish up, we're all good, and across the way in Anaheim is Disney World. Whichever one is in Disneyland. Okay, Disneyland is
We got
California.
Disney World here.
Yes. So Disneyland. And outside is like the walking around area where they have all the shops and whatever. And we go to Rainforest Cafe, just walking in front of it. And my wife is a big Avenged Sevenfold fan too. She turns around and she's like, is that the guys from Avenged? And I turn around and I'm probably one of the biggest Avenged Sevenfold guys in the world. I'm like, oh my God, that is Shadows and Sinister Gates, literally sitting right there. And it's in the outside with this gate, right? And so they're just hanging out. And my wife is like the coolest person in the world. And I'm sitting there just like, oh my God, who is this? And so I turn around and I like, they see us coming and we're cool and collected, but I walk up to Sinister Gates and I'm like, hey, we're big fans of you guys. Is it cool if we grab a picture? Couldn't have been any nicer. They're like, yeah, sure. And just talk to us for a second. And the photo that I have, I'll show you in a little bit. The photo that we have is the guys in Avenged Sevenfold being cool as ever. My wife just smiling, being like, oh, this is awesome. And me holding just like a stupid milkshake, looking like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, this is crazy. And I'm just like, years later, I'm just like, I'm still into them. I still love them. And I'll still always remember that. It's crazy.
That's so fun. I've heard that about Avenged Sevenfold, that they're just good dudes, and that, there's someone that there are people that I would like to meet. And, because of wrestling, I have met a lot of like people and fans. Like, I was able to chat with Jesse from Killswitch Engage, or
nice.
The day after the music video, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this band, but they're a band called Necrogoblicon.
Yeah.
Goblin on the band, John Goblicon and all that. So I'm friends with the band, and and I was like, hey, this is a while back. I'm like, hey, when you're in Orlando, I'd love to get on stage and do a bit with you. And I went on and did a Prince of the Land of Stench with them, which was really fun.
So
that
cool.
was, what was it, yesterday, 2 days ago? And there was another situation because, like, they didn't, it was all kind of on the fly. Like, I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know what exactly. And like, I was standing next to my wife. I'm like, oh, that's the song. And then, one of their guys like, hey, they need you to go out there. And I'm like, okay, cool. So they already started. And so like my wife, by the time she turned around, like I wasn't there. She's like, and she's like, sees me on the stage. But like that entire time, she's like, I just get so stressed out. I just don't know how it's like, you just go and do it. Like, and it's like,
go with the flow.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, I just don't know how you do it. I'm like, you just, music is kind of like that, where you just kind of, you just kind of find your space in it. But, I've been very blessed, and, hopefully, if anybody's listening, I'd love to meet Avenged Sevenfold. I'd love to meet
Absolutely.
them.
Who's been your favorite people that you've met through this kind of merge of wrestling and music?
So a random one would be Joey Fatone.
Okay.
That's a random one. He was very sweet, very kind. Being able to talk with Jesse is cool. I could tell like that between Killswitch Engage and Times of Grace, like,
oh man,
it's very, their music's great. And, the lyrical content and the stories that he tells, and, who he is as a person, like, that's kind of like a lot of inspiration. Like all like the lyrics and all that, like they speak to a lot of people. So that's cool. And I mean, obviously, like I mentioned before, like Necrogoblicon, like the Goblin, like they're like the entire band is so cool. They're a bunch of nice people. Keep on the lookout. I might be doing a stream at some point with Dickie Allen, the lead singer. But I would say, as far as music, the crossover of music and wrestling, those would be the biggest ones. I'm very, very frustrated or mad, I don't know, jealous of my wife, because she got to meet, John Kramer from Saw, and then she got to meet Corey Taylor. But I was wrestling at a house show, so I was wrestling, and of course, she got to meet them. And like, well, whatever, that's cool. But my wife, being the absolute sweetheart she is, she got me an autograph picture from both of them. So, it worked out. But I was like, I just want to meet them,
I know. And Florida is also one of those places where, we talked about it being a hotbed for metal and things like that. It's also a hotbed for horror. So the fact that you're saying Saw and all that, it's like, man, they're just like a drive away at some of these conventions down there too. When I was living in
Yeah.
Florida, I was very much going to many of those in my youth. And I was just like, I say youth, I'm 36. I'm still young. You're younger than me. But but
Yeah,
I
you're not
just
old.
I loved being down there, and you brought up a couple different things there. And I'm just like, man, being able to Kill Switch always for me. I'm gonna always say something controversial when Kill Switch comes up because I love Kill Switch. Probably one of my top 3 bands all time. Times of Grace too. When that first Times of Grace record came out, I was just like, dude, this is for me probably some of the best music that anyone affiliated with Killswitch Engage came out with. Like Hymn of a Broken Man, I heard that. I was like,
Yeah.
damn, what is this? And then just everything on that record was, and the second one was really, really good too. But there was a period in time where I was just like, if Times of Grace is what we get post Killswitch, you boys here for it.
Yeah,
Totally
honestly,
go on
that
it.
you're right. That first album was absolutely. I have like pretty much. I think I have the whole album saved on one of my playlists.
Yeah.
That Times of Grace album was great. I'm a big Killswitch fan, and Howard and Jesse, and like it's so cool that they're both cool. Because I listened to a little bit of what Howard's doing now. What's the name of the band?
Well, he's got a couple. He's got Light
He's
the
got
Torch. He's got Scion or Scion or however you said. I think it's Scion.
it's
But
the one after Light the Torch.
okay.
No, 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 you know what, you're right. It's Light the Torch. There is another band. I've been listening to a lot of Light the Torch as well. But like, between Howard and Jesse, like they're both like doing the same, doing their things, and it's nice to know like, regardless of Kill Switch, there's always, music, that type of music that's going to be out. And even the guitar player, Adam, he is working on a record with Howard right now. So there's going to be and which is funny because he worked on that record with Jesse for Times of Grace. So it's like there's going to be, there's something for both era of fans, of Kill Switch Engage.
And then when Times of Grace went on tour, they had some of the members from Killswitch on there. Like
Yeah.
I think Joel was on one of the first tours that Times of Grace did. I'm basically just like, this is one of those things in the scene too. Like when you look into like early metalcore, like Shadows Fall, All That Remains, Killswitch. It's like, oh, these guys sang for this. Like Phil was in Shadows Fall before All That Remains, and then this guy did. It's kind of like everybody in that scene just helps out, and especially if you're so close with like talented musicians like that. Man, when I was a kid, I met Adam D in like the weirdest way too. So I'll be brief, and then I got 2 more questions for you before we leave, if that's cool. When I was a kid, right before I went to college, we had gone to, I forget if it was Warped Tour, it was another one of these like festivals. And right before that, my brother for my birthday was giving me like silly gifts, and he gave me this little keychain that was Mr. T in like 5 different phrases. The little orange thing with blue buttons. You'd hit it and be like, I'm gonna get you, sucker, or things like that. And it's just fun stuff. Dude, I couldn't let this thing down. I was like, oh, it's in my pocket everywhere. Killswitch Engage comes on, and I'm just like, I got to be front row for this because I love Killswitch. Killswitch comes up. There's this like after the Curse came out, and they were playing like that whole record, which is banger record. Adam D walks out, all 6'8" of this tall son of a bitch, right? He comes out, and coming off of his short shorts, hanging off of his belt loop, is that same thing, that same Mr. T thing. And dude, I'm looking at him. And I'm just like, Adam, Adam. And while he's riffing, I forget what song it is, but it's a riff that's like not just open to where he could do what he's about to do. So he's literally looking like, what's that little kid do? And I hold it up. He looks down at his, looks at me, stops playing, and just goes. And dude, it was like, my God, I was just like, this is crazy. So like after they got off stage, we went over to the side, and I told the security guard, I'm like, look, I swear, I am not trying to pull what fast one on you. I have this Mr. T thing. And I told him the whole story, and he's just like, I'm going to watch you. I'm like, dude, please. Like, Adam's right there. Watch it. I don't care. My buddy and I were there. And Adam sees me walking towards him, and I hold it up, and he holds his up, and he's just like, yeah. And so, like, literally, Mr. T and that little plastic thing was just enough to meet Killswitch Engage that day. And I was so shocked with how tall he was. My God.
I was gonna say I had no idea he was so tall. I would never have guessed that he was that tall.
It's crazy. I'm 6'1", and I have to see if I could find that photo somewhere in the annals of history. But like, I'm 6'1", and that guy was like towers on me. I was like, Jesus
Really?
Christ, dude. Yeah, he's a
I
big
didn't know
boy.
I didn't realize that. Because I like watching concert videos and all the time. I would never have guessed that he's that tall.
You don't think about it, and then you look at the rest of the band, and you're just like, okay,
Like, oh, that checks out.
perspective-wise, yeah. So it's just like it's crazy. But I got two more questions for you
Sure.
before you leave, which is one question I've been asking everybody, and one is a new question to the show.
Okay.
We just had Ben Eller on, who just got off the stage with Mastodon, and we
Mhm.
started talking about it, and I was just like, man, it's a good question to ask because I asked him on his show, and now I got asked on this show. So, question number one: you got to put together a you got to put together a 3-match card that's full of just musicians doing a wrestling thing. What would those be, and who would you have as the musicians, and what kind of matches?
So these musicians are wrestling. They're not. It's not music.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So 3-match card. Okay. Well, off rip, I would probably have Corey Taylor and Fred Durst in a hardcore match.
Oh my God.
That would be that's my immediate one. Let's see. I guess M Shadows from Avenged, and let's go with Matt Tuck from Bullet for My Valentine.
There you go.
Let's see for this last one. We'll do a battle of the axes here. Let's do. I don't know. Okay, in their prime, both Sinister Gates and John Petrucci.
Oh my God.
Yeah, battle of the axes right there.
I love that one too, and I love how it's like influence meets influenced in that one.
Exactly. Yeah. Those that was 3, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Prime
okay, yeah.
Sinister Gates is also shredded to the gills. So,
It's weird. Like I remember when M Shadows, like I was in high school and they came out with Hail to the King, and like he came out like he was beefy, like he was a big dude, and I was like, I don't remember him being so huge.
yeah, back when they were doing Warped Tour originally, and it was sounding the seventh trumpet and things like that, they were a little smaller, all wearing the black and whatever. It was cool. Then they came out with City of Evil, which to me is my favorite Avenged record of all time. Which that was my high school record, right? And so when they came out with that, you see the first bunch of pictures, and they're all jacked to the nines. M Shadows is just like singing, all ripped. I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing? And then after that, same thing. Most of the band got ripped on that, and it's crazy. So for me, yeah, I like that Prime Sinister
They don't make
Gates.
them like they used to.
Keep 'em beefy. That should be another shirt too in the metalcore scene. Keep 'em
'em
beefy. And then the last question I ask everybody before they come on. The last question I ask everybody: if you had to choose 3 songs that represent Javi, either personally or wrestling wise, what would those 3 songs be that you'd put on a Spotify playlist to let people know this is Javi?
Through Struggle by As I Lay Dying, The End of Heartache by Killswitch Engage. That's tough because there's like plenty that I want to say. I would say it's on the tip of my tongue. I know that I hear the song in my head. I'm trying to remember the name of it, which is probably a bad look for this question.
It's always the toughest question I ask everybody. I get to the end of every conversation and people are just like, wish you would have told me that before. I'm like, no, it's the spontaneity, man.
That's a tough question. So there's 2 Avenged Sevenfold songs. One's off the Nightmare record and one's off the Wake in the Fallen record. I Hope I See You Tonight. That's what it is. I Hope I See You Tonight.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, a little deep cut there.
That's awesome. I like that one. And I'm hoping that everybody who hears us talking and goozing about Avenged Sevenfold here will go check out. Well, first off, you should already be checking out the discography because they're great. And if you're not, then please go check it out. And if you're checking
Absolutely.
out this last record, go check out the earlier records too because they are just slamming. Man, awesome.
I love the early stuff is my favorite stuff.
Me too. Yeah. It's like Prime Avenged. I love it.
Absolutely.
Javi, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It's been number one, probably one of my favorite conversations, having just talking all metalcore and all that, and just seeing, again, all the things that you have going on, the perspective of what's coming next. And I know I'm excited for it. I know everybody listening and watching is excited for it. And you just seem super excited for it. So, keep up just everything you're doing. Keep rocking. And I'm so excited to have had you on the show.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much. It's been a blast talking here, and hopefully we get to do this sometime again soon. I really enjoyed it.